Welcome to this modern Indian lecture series. In this lecture, we are going to take chapter 2 of Bipan Chandrapal. So, this is the part 1, and sequentially, we will move to the part 2, part 3, part 4 if required for the chapter 2. So, in this lecture, we are going to take Indian states and society of the 18th century. And in this chapter, we will especially take the Hyderabad and the Bengal state. That was the successive state of the Mughal Empire only. And similarly, we will take after that Awadh, Kerala, and Marathas and all. Okay. So moving ahead to this lecture, I will request you to please go through this lecture till the end so that you will have a complete picture of it. Further, I will request you to please subscribe the channel if you haven't subscribed, because this is a new channel. I really need your support. So first, for the introduction part, that how the independent states started to form, how the different state started to form, as the Mughal Empire aim was to become a pan India empire. Okay, so that was to rule all over the India. The main aim of the Mughal Empire was that only. And similarly, that Maratha kingdom also followed the same strategy, but the Maratha kingdom had a weakness of unity. The Maratha Sardars do not have a unity among them, and thus they also failed to become a pan India empire. So that's what it is said, that after Mughal, only Maratha had the capability, Maratha kingdom had the capability to become the pan India empire, but because of the disunity and all, they failed to do so. Okay, so right now we are going to take this Hyderabad and the Bengal kingdom. So what happened, uh, different independent kingdom started to form from the Mughal empire only. Okay, how they started to form? So it was like some nobles started to form, started to take control over a particular region. And in starting they said, like, we will be working under the Mughal empire only, but later they made independent from the Mughal empire. So it was like, if you are working under the Mughal empire, you have to follow the Mughal administration. The revenue whatever you will be collected, that should be informed to the central Mughal authority. The prayer that will be continued under the empire will be done under the name of central Mughal authority. So these were the conditions, these were the that is the conditions to be followed if you are under the control of the Mughal empire. Okay, so similarly, when these new states started to form, they followed these conditions, but after that, as the central authority started to decline, they started to be proved themselves as an independent one. They when they used to change the policies without informing the central Mughal authority, they imposed certain tax, they used to take some peace deal with some particular state, and they do not inform to the Mughal authority. So when they started to do these kind of steps, so ultimately they declare the regions as an independent one, and their positions became a hereditary, and thus it is to be called as an independent state. Okay, so this happened after the decline of the Mughal empire, that we have already discussed in the chapter 1. Okay, so as it is mentioned here in this slide also, so large number of independent and the semi independent power rose on the debris of the Mughal empire. So independent means, like, someone proved that I am completely independent, and whatever the rulers will become, they will be completely hereditary basis. And some semi independent, so it was like the positions will be hereditary only. It is just a hypothetical situation. So let us suppose that the position will be hereditary only, but whatever the tax you will impose, the shares of tax will be given to the central Mughal authority. Whatever the peace deal you are going to take, so you have to take permission with central Mughal authority. So that is something called as a semi independent powers. Okay, so that's what after the Mughal central authority started to decline, and that started to decline after the death of the Aurangzeb only. So so the large number of independent and semi independent power rose on the debris of the Mughal empire for the 18th century. 18th century means 1701 to 1799. So that's 1800 all. Okay, so this will be your 18th century. So such as for this kind of states, such as there will be Bengal, Awadh, Hyderabad, Mysore, and Maratha kingdom. So these are the empire that rose from the Mughal empire only. So earlier it was like there was a control of the Mughal empire on those regions, and later they proved to be as independent and or semi-independent. Okay, so it is these power. When the British came into India, so they came as a businessman only, but latter they changed into a businessman to the ruling authority. Okay, so British had a challenge to take the control of the India. The main kingdom was Maratha kingdom. Maratha kingdom was a challenge. Maratha kingdom was a challenge for the British one, and then Hyderabad also. Then you will be in the south, like in the Carnatic regions, and also these were the few areas like Awadh also. Awadh will also be counted in that. So these regions, that with region Bengal, Awadh, Hyderabad, Mysore, and Maratha kingdoms will were those regions that was challenge for the British. So it is these power which British had to overcome in their attempt to get the supremacy over the India. Okay, so that is a very important point to be noted. Okay, so now and after that, which state become the successive state and which state become the rebellious state. So successive state means like there was no fight. There was no fight happened between the central Mughal authority and in the new regions formed. So it was like mutually. It happened like central Mughal authority was unable to control over that region, and after that, the new regions that was formed, they proved to be independent. So it was like successive state. Okay, successive means what? That after one king, another king is ruling on to that region. So similarly, successive state. So after that, it was the Mughal empire, and after that, the new state got formed. So Bengal, Awadh, and Hyderabad will be counted under the successive states. Okay, without any fight, these three states were formed. But why they are called as a successive state? They proved to be called as a successive state because they asserts as an autonomy over that regions by the Mughal provinces. Okay, so they said like, now we are going to take the positions will be hereditary, and the control over the regions will be autonomy one. So it will not be come under the control of the central Mughal authority. Okay, so they arose as a result of assertion of the autonomy by governors of Mughal provinces with the decay of central power. So as the central power started to decay, they started to prove them. They started to emerge themselves as an independent one, autonomous one. Okay, and further, they accepted the supremacy of the Mughal over them and adapted the methods and special of Mughal administration. So it is that when they started to form the new state, when they thought that we have to create a new state to the regions, so in that concept, they accepted that yes, I am accepting the supremacy of the Mughal administration to the Mughal province. I will work under you. Yes, you are supreme. We are down only. So it was like if any order will come from the Mughal authority, from the central Mughal authority, they will accept it. Okay, and unless and until I will be independent. If you want to do me something, I will be ready to do. Otherwise, I will do whatever I want. So it is like they accepted the supremacy of the Mughal authority. How is it like right now? You are living in a democratic country. Okay, so you are ready to do whatever you want to do, unless and until there is a rule and regulation. So let us suppose right now you can roam around the roads, on the streets. You can go from one state to another. And let us suppose in the COVID time there was a lockdown. So in that situation you can't go. Why? Because you have asserted the supremacy of the government rule. Okay, until unless government don't bother, I will be independent. I will roam wherever I want to do. I can go from one state to another. I can be roam around my street also. But yes, when the government is going to restrict, I will follow the government rules and regulations. It means that I have accepted the supremacy of the government. Similarly, in that manner, this Hyderabad, Awadh, and the Bengal accepted the supremacy of the Mughal administration, and they followed the Mughal administration rules and regulations as well. Okay, Maratha. I hope you understand the difference. What this line means, like they accepted the supremacy of the Mughal administration. Okay, now this was like without any fight, these states formed. Now we will take These Maratha, Afghan, Jat and Punjab. Maratha, Afghan, Jat and Afghan will be Afghanistan regions and all. Jat, Punjab, those that western part of the India, and the Maratha will be Maharashtra and all. So these states were formed by the rebellions, like they rebel around the against the kings and all, and they formed the new regions. So these Maratha, Afghan, Jat and Punjab were the product of the rebellions by local chieftains, jamindars and the peasants against the Mughal authority. Like this group was formed by the these groups were formed by the collection of jamindars, peasants and all under the Mughal authority name. The politics of these states were non-communal and the secular. That is one very important point to note. So the 18th century India was a secular India. Secular India means what? They do not care about the religion, whether you are a Muslim or a Hindu. If you are a good fighter and all, Muslim will have the Hindu ruler, and mostly it was seen that in the regions of the villages, it is especially written in the social structure of the 18th century. Whenever the question will come related to the state the social condition of the 18th century of India, in that case you will mention that there was a secularity in that during time, and especially in the regions of the village. In the village, that is the local people used to live together. Even Muslim people used to celebrate Holi and Diwali, and the Hindu people used to celebrate Eid and all with together, and also it was like completely secular during that time. There was no discrimination on the basis of religion, and it is true. You can 100% write this question in your answer sheet when the question will be asked related to the social conditions, communal conditions during of that time of the 18th century. Okay, so that's what it is mentioned, that Maratha, Afghan, Jat, Punjab were the product of rebellions by the local chieftains, jamindars and the peasants against the Mughal authority, and the politics of these states were non-communal, that is secular. Okay, now if you see, that is the if this empire of the Mughal, the only part that was left, this southwest and southeast zone of the India was left to be they were untouched by the Mughal. Okay, and the eastern part also. So these regions and these regions were untouched by the Mughal empire. Okay, so that's what it is mentioned here, that southwest and southeast coast of India and the northeast zone of India were the place that had not been penetrated by the Mughal to any degree. So they were completely untouched. Okay, so and none of these states, what is the next point that I'm going to see? So none of these states succeeded in arresting the economic crisis which had set during the 17th century. So there was economic crisis during the 16th, that is 17th century, that will start from the 1601 to 1700. Okay, so in that 16th century, in that 17th century, there was economic crisis. There was huge jagirs were being collected by the peasants and all. But remember one thing, whenever we are going to tell huge jagir collections and huge jagir collections were taken by the kings and all. So whatever the conditions was there during that time, it was better than the British era, because the production was very huge by the Indian state, but the collection of tax was that much they were able to survive, and it was good than the British era. So whenever someone tells like the conditions of the peasants were very bad during the 17th century or the 18th century, remember one thing, whatever the conditions were there during 17th century or the 18th century during the rule of the Mughals and all, it was better than the Mughal era, British era, English rural era. Okay, so none of the states succeeded in economic crisis. Yes, economic crisis was there. The tax was collected with the peasants and all, with hues of Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, that 1/4 and or the 10% or the 25% used to be being collected by the kings and all, and sometimes it was collected with cruelty as well. Even if the famine was the condition, then also it was being collected with the cruelty, and they offered the loans, but at the end they have to be payback, and the payback will be in the form of food grains only. Okay, so that was the situation. So none of the states succeeded in addressing the economic crisis which had happened during the 17th century, and the power of Jamindar, Jagirdar constantly increased, and the peasants were continuously deteriorated, and this promoted the foreign and internal trade, but never attention on the modernizing it. So one of the major drawback of that time was that the king or the merchants or the jamindars and all, they never paid attention to the science and technology. Where India was very good in mathematics, in the general science earlier, but it was a shameful thing for us that we didn't give attention to the science and technology. And during the same period, the western countries were developing at a very high pace. So it was not like that we were not developing ourselves, but the development of technology that we had during that time, it was almost negligible with compared to the western countries. Okay, and that was the reason we were unaware about the western things. Whatever thing is going on in western countries, we allowed the English company, that East India Company, to establish in that regions, and ultimately they started to control over our the area. Okay, so none of the states succeeded in arresting the economic crisis which led during the 17th century, and the power of the Jamindar, Jagirdar constantly increased, and the peasants were continuously deteriorated. They promoted foreign and internal trade, but never put attention on the modernizing thing. And yes, in the sense of modernizing thing, yes, in the technologies, the machines, the weaving machines and all, we didn't give attention. We dependent upon the labor force. Our agriculture was also never modernized, but in one scenario we modernize things. We will saw in this lecture what are the things we modernize our weapons. Yes, it can't be compared with the western thing, but yes, our weapons were modernized, our wars equipments were modernized, and one more thing, the boat of the Indian boat was actually very good. So it was said that the more we learnt, British learnt more from us in the development of boats and all. Okay, so these were the things that we were bad and they were good. In the most of the case, we were bad only in the compare with the technologies and all. Okay, so this was the introduction part. So now we will see the Hyderabad region. So how this Hyderabad involved and all, and whatever the wars were taken and all for the Allahabad and all, we will see in the separate lecture. For the Bengal, it was like Battle of Palasi and the Buxar. So those things will be a separate lecture for it. Okay. So the Hyderabad, as we discussed in the part 1, the Hyderabad was founded by Nizamul Mulk, Chin Kulij Khan. I think it was the other name of the Nizamul Mulk. So yes, so it was the Nizamul Mulk, and he was the one who killed Sayyid brothers. Okay, Sayyid brothers, and he said the Muhammad Shah, as the Sayyid brothers were famous for the killing of the regions, and even the people were not liking these brothers. Okay, and Muhammad Shah alliance with these Nizamul Mulk, and later they killed the Sayyid brothers. Okay, now when Sayyid brothers were killed, and when Muhammad Shah started to rule under the when the Nizamul Mulk started to rule under the Muhammad Shah, he find that he was unable to raise the empire, and ultimately he resigned from the position. He left the empire and he went to the Deccan, and he started to control that region. And after that, he declared himself, and he declared as the first Nawab of Hyderabad. So Nizamul Mulk was the first Nawab. He was the founder of the Nawab for the Hyderabad. Okay, so why he left? He got disgusted with the office of Muhammad Shah, and he left the empire to maintain the safe supremacy in the Deccan. Why he should raise in the under the Muhammad Shah, and the regions is not fruitful also. He was under the pressure only. So he ruled Hyderabad with a strong hand. He left that region and he started to rule Hyderabad. That Delhi regions he left and all. Okay. Further, the one more important thing that I was discussing in the starting only, he never declared himself as an independent one. So he always said that I will be ruling under the central government, central authority of the Mughal Empire, unlike Bengal. So Bengal started to prove its independence, and it was like the prayer will be also done under the name of the Nawab of Bengal only. So these things didn't happen with the Nizam of Hyderabad. So he never openly declared the independence with the central authority, but in the practice he acted like an independent one only, as he started to take decisions on the wars, in the peace deal, given Jagirs, the percentage of Jagirs he used to decide, confers titles, he used to give titles to some rulers, some king, without reference to Delhi, without telling to Delhi, without giving information to the Delhi. Okay, so that's what, like, he proved that he accepted the supremacy of the Mughal Empire, but he did not rule in as a coordination with the Mughal Empire. He ruled as an independent only. So that's what I explained, the supremacy. He accepted the supremacy of the Mughal Empire, but he did not follow that I am under your ruling. Okay, so if let us suppose if any conditions came, like if any rule came from the central Mughal authority that you don't have to take it, yes, then Nizam will not take it, because he accepted the supremacy of the Delhi. Okay, so he followed a tolerant policy towards the Hindus as well. As I've said that these 18th century was a secular only. There was no religious discrimination within the king also. No, there was no such thing. So he followed a tolerant policy towards Hindu. Example, Puran Chand was his diwan. That was the name of one Hindu person that was acted as a diwan for him. So he followed the same Jagirdari system, that Jagirs will be there and Jagirdar will be there. Jagirs means that a portion of land, and Jagirdar means the collection, the revenue officer that who will collect the Jagirs, who will collect the Jagir, who will collect the money, who will collect the portions of the land cultivated by the peasants. Whatever the food produced by the peasants, they will cultivate, they will take it. So that is one Jagirdari system. So he followed the same Jagirdari system as of Mughal to hold his power. He forced the big turbulent Jagirdar to respect the authority and kept the powerful Marathas out of his dominion. So yes, in the case of Maratha was like, he was a rebellious group. They always tried to attack Deccans and all. So in his time he kept the power from Marathas forcefully from that regions, from his area, from the Deccan. And just take one consideration, when I'm talking about Hyderabad, Carnatic will also be considered under the Hyderabad only at the time. After that, like, Carnatic declared himself as the independent one, but it was under the Hyderabad. Like how Hyderabad said, like, I am accepting the supremacy of the Mughal Empire, that Delhi central authority. Similarly, Carnatic tells that I am accepting the supremacy of the Nizam of Hyderabad. Okay. So if you want to see the tension, so it is like, see, it was like central Mughal authority, and it was like Nizam. So Nizam said I am accepting the supremacy, and similarly Carnatic said I am accepting the supremacy of the Nizam. But in the manner, but actually they all were independent. They were ruling as an independent one. Okay. So yeah. So he followed the Jagirdari system as of Mughal to hold his power. He forced the big turbulent Jamindar to respect the authority and kept the powerful Marathas out of his dominions. After his death in 1748, Hyderabad fell a prey to the same disruptive forces as were operating in the Delhi. Okay, so after his death, as he died in 1714 and he came rule in 1724 around, yes, in the 1724. Okay, so after his death in the 1748, same conditions happened as the Mughal authority. Their fights started to happen between the who will rule that authority and all, and later we will see that the regions will be occupied by the Maratha king also, and also it was like declined. So but during the period of the Nizamul Mulk, yes, it was a very strong, and as it said, he ruled the Hyderabad with a strong hand, with a strong hand. Okay, So if we tell about the Carnatic region, the Carnatic was one of the subas of the Mughal Deccan, so that is a part of the sub-state of the Mughal Deccan, that is the Hyderabad regions, Mughal Deccan, which came under the Nizams of Hyderabad. So it is like, see how that is the India, and within India we have a state called Bihar, and the state there is a Vaishali. Okay, so that is, it is a country, it is a state, and it is a sub-state. So it is a sub-state. Okay, so similar conditions. So it was like Mughal, it is like Nizam, and it is like Carnatic. So Carnatic was like, yes, I am under the Suwas of Mughal, and I will be ruling under the Nizam of the Hyderabad authority. So similar to Nizam of Hyderabadi, independent to Delhi, deputy governor of the Carnatic, known as the Nawab of Carnatic. So who was ruling in the Nawab of Carnatic? The deputy governor of the Carnatic region, and he called himself as a Nawab. So Nizam, remember, don't confuse. Nizam, Hyderabad. Wait. 1 second. So Nizam, why is it behaving like that? It is behaving something different, I'm sorry. So Nizam will be like Hyderabad, and that that Nawab will be for Carnatic region. So similar thing happened, similar, the Bengal was also known as the Nawab only. So he freed himself of the control of the Viceroy of the Deccan and made himself the hereditary. Due to the dispute raising between successor here, the affairs of the Carnatic deteriorated because of the repeated struggle of the Nawabship. So similar conditions happened. So after the death of the of that region, so there was a, yes, the post was made hereditary, and after the making the hereditary, yes, whenever you make something hereditary, then there will be fight for the supremacy of the regions. Okay, so this provided an opportunity to the European trading companies to direct interfere into the Indian politics, and after that you will see that French and all started to come. So this gave a chance, like when there was disunity, this gave a chance to come into the Indian politics. Okay, in this page I hope it should work. Yeah, in this page it is working fine. So now we will take Bengal. Okay, so who formed this your this Nizam ul Mulk formed the your Hyderabad. Now similarly Murshid Quli Khan, that became the Nawab of Bengal. Remember, Hyderabad Nizam, and this one Nawab. So Nawab of Bengal, first that was Murshid Quli Khan. After that it was Alivardi Khan. Okay, and similarly you will see Shujauddin. So Shujauddin. Okay, so these three Nawab gave peace to the Bengal region. Okay, so Bengal was disturbed, but these three regions, these three Nawabs were responsible for the peace in the Nawab. But yes, within themselves there was no peace. Okay, so Murshid Quli Khan and the Alivardi Khan took the advantage of the weakness of the central authority and set up the Bengal as a virtual independent. So the advantage, what is the advantage? Advantage is that the central Mughal authority was deteriorating. So similarly, when the central Mughal authority was deteriorating, so they proved themselves as an independent one. They started to, the prayer, whatever the prayer was done, it was not done under the name of Mughal Empire. It was done under the name of the Nawab of Bengal. Friday prayer. In the Muslim, there is something called a Friday prayer. So the Friday prayer was being done under the name of the Nawab of Bengal, not under the name of Mughal Empire. Okay, earlier it was the name of the Mughal Empire, but they, after that, they proved themselves to be independent, and the prayer used to be done under the name of Nawab of Bengal. Okay, so Murshid Quli Khan became the governor of Bengal in the 1770. He became in the 1724. Okay, so in 1770, but he had its ruling control from the 1700s. So it was like from the Aurangzeb time only he was ruling in the Bengal, but not independent. He knows the Bengal, he knows the regions, he knows the conspiracy behind the Bengals and all. But actually he took the governorship in the 1717. But he virtually was ruling from the 17 from the Aurangzeb time only. So he established a peace by freeing the Bengal from internal and external dangers such as the Jamindars as well. So he started to control over the Jamindars, even the Jagirdars and all. So that kind of peace happened. So peasants were not much that depressed as used to be under the control of the Mughal. And after that he died in the 1727. So in the 1770 he took the control, and actually was ruling from 1700 only, but he took the control of the government from the 1770. That is the Nawab of Bengal, the title that he took under in the year 1717 only. Okay, he died in the 1727, and after that his son-in-law Shujauddin ruled Bengal till 1739. So around 12 years. So he ruled the Bengal. So for 12 years he ruled till 1739, and in that year after that Alivardi Khan killed the son of Shujauddin, and he made himself his Nawab. So these three were more important: Murshid Quli Khan, then Shujauddin, and the Alivardi Khan. After that Alivardi Khan died, his grandson became the ruler. That was the last Nawab of Bengal, and after that British took control over from the Bengal. Okay, so that make it clear: Murshid Quli Khan, Shujauddin, that is the son-in-law of Murshid Quli Khan. Murshid Quli Khan was the founder of the Nawab of Bengal. He proved himself as an independent one, and after that 1717 he started rule, but actually he was controlling from 1700. He ruled under the name of Aurangzeb also. So Alivardi Khan killed his son, and after that he became and after that his grandson of the Alivardi Khan, Sirajuddin Daulah, became the Nawab of Bengal, and after that British took control over the region. So these three Nawab gave peace. Who three Nawab? Murshid Quli Khan, Shujauddin, and Alivardi Khan. These three gave peace to the Bengal for long period in its administration and promoted the trade and industry. So here that comes to the game of that British. So what happened? They were unaware of the Western countries. They didn't know about the European country, this East India Company, that they deteriorated the regions of the South America, that Africa regions, Latin America, and also they destroyed those regions. They were unaware about those things, and they thought like this is a simple company only, that a trading company only, what they can do. They were not knowing about the power of the East India Company. East India Company was backed by the military force of the British government at that time. After that, in 1900, we will see that many different companies have started to complain to British government that why such kind of privilege is given to the East India Company. Why East India Company is treated like a government agency. It is like a simple private company. It should be treated like us only. There is a monopoly with the East India Company in doing business with the India. So why this is such kind of privilege providing to them? So actually they were not aware about that much of power that East India Company has, and they simply treated this East India Company as a trading company, simple trading company. Okay, so they give rights to the East India Company. So these China gave the long period. Murshid Quli Khan converted this. Murshid Quli Khan converted Jagir land into Khalisa land. So Khalisa land is something called as a land for the king, especially whatever the product will be grown, that maximum part will be going to the kings, and also that kind of land is from Khalisa land, carrying by the fresh revenue settlement system. He recruited revenue farmers, officials from the jamindars, and merchants and bankers. So merchant and bankers, Jagat Seth brothers were very important name in the merchant banker, who were the responsible. That was one of the businessmen. They used to give loans to the peasants and all. So if later suppose a famine happened and if the peasants are unable to pay, so in that case they will give loan to them and they will pay to the king. So these Jagat Seth brothers becomes very important during that time, and they were only responsible for the British East India Company to be established in the Bengal and rule over like that. So the main power that given by the Jagat Seth brothers only. So that thing we will discuss in the separate lecture, that is the battle of the Palasi and the Buxar. Okay, so further this he granted, this Murshid Quli Khan granted the takavi to the poor cultivator to relieve this distress. Let us suppose there is a famine happened during that time. So Murshid Quli Khan introduced something called as a loan. In the local term it was known as takavi. So if they are failed to do so, they can take the loan and they can give it, and the next year if they have a good cultivation, then they can repay more as per the interest and all. Okay, so he granted loans to the poor cultivator to relieve the distress, but the revenue farming pressurized the jamindars and the peasants, and the amount specified was a standard one, and it was taken by the cruelty. So it was like, if you have a taken loan, then whatever the case you have to pay back. It was, let us suppose in the next year also famine happened, they will not bother and they will collect it with the cruelty. So that was the condition during the Murshid Quli Khan. Okay, now all the Nawab gave equal, yes, as I have said from starting only, the 18th century was the era of what? Secularism. Okay, and especially this kind of secularism was seen in the villages and all. Okay, so all the Nawab gave equal opportunities to Hindus and Muslims, and highest civil post and the military post were filled with Bengalis only, and most Bengalis were Hindus only. Okay, and further in case of choosing revenue farms, Murshid Quli gave preference to the Jamindars and the Mahajans who were mainly Hindus. Thus he laid the foundation of the landed aristocracy and the Bengal. So it was like more importance started to be given to the Jagirs and the Jamindars, and ultimately when you are giving more power to them, yes, the aristocracy will be formed. Okay, so this was one of the proof, the statement that you can write, like how you can show that the 18th century was a secular India. So yes, through this line also you can prove. Now Nawab provided security. That was the one important thing, that during that time they have also the same concept like today, like police thanas, chowkis and all were there. Yes, police stations and all were there for the robberies and all. So yes, during that time only the Nawab provided the security and the safety of the roads, river from the thieves and the robber by establishing regular thanas and chowki. They prevented the abuse of the custom administration and checked private traders as well. So there was no corruption, like corruption was there, but they used to check all those things. There were separate officers for that. Further, the strict control were there on the foreign trades. They compelled the servants of East Indian Company to follow the same rule as the other private traders companies are doing. That was one of the very good thing, but they failed ultimately to realize the power of the East India Company. So they compelled the servants of the East India Company to follow the law of land and to pay the same custom duty as the other merchants used to do. You are nothing different. You won't be given something privileges. You are like other merchant only. Okay, so Alivardi Khan, this thing, this the calculation, the mismatch of the calculation, the knowledge about the East India Company was failed during the Alivardi Khan era only. So Alivardi Khan did not allow British and the French to fortify the factories in the Calcutta and the Chandernagore in the city of Hooghly, and he started to grant rights and all after that. So but he did not pay attention to the increasing tendency of the East India Company and continued to believe that a trading company could not be a threat for the power, that I said earlier only. They failed to assume the power of the trading company, because this trading company was backed by a British government only. They have a trained officials and all, military powers and all. They failed to guess that thing, this threat of power, and they failed to see East India Company that was no mere a company but was a representative of the most aggressive and expansionist colonies of the world at the time. The ignorance and lack of contact of the rest of the world costed them. So it was like they didn't know about the Western countries, whatever the thing is going in the Western time. The Indians were bothered about into their regions only. They did not go much for the trading also. They did not have they did not, most of the traders come to India only for the trading. They did not go to the other regions, everything. So they were not aware about the Western part. So otherwise they would have known, if they know about those Western times, so otherwise they would have known the devastation condition of the Western trading company, the condition that has done by this Western trading companies in the Africa, Southeast Asia and the Latin America as well. So the Nawab of Bengal failed to build a strong army and paid a very heavy price for it. What happened? Fortification started during that time with the British, and the British did the fortification. First one thing, to show the strength to the government, and another was to prevent its office from the French attack. That's what it started, the fortification. After that war happened and all, and the Nawabs defeated in that. So that thing we will see in the Battle of Palasi and the Buxar. Okay, so Alivardi Khan was constantly troubled by the repeated invasion of the Maratha, and in the end he had to cede a large part of the Orissa to the Maratha. So he was tensed by the British company, and at the same time, as I said, rebellious Maratha always try to attack the Mughal area, especially for the Deccan. Deccan is a mountainous region, so they were expert in the guerrilla warfare, like the Shivaji and all. So but same Maratha, when they fought the war in the Delhi regions, they defeated, because that was a plain land. So they were expert in the guerrilla warfare. So thus they thus they lose the fight in the Delhi region, that was the plain land, but they were they were winning the fight in the Deccan region and all, because they were a mountainous region, so they were expert in the guerrilla warfare. Okay, so in that case, after that, the Nawab of Bengal have to give the Orissa to him. In 1756-67, English East India Company declared war against the Sirajud-Dowla. Sirajud-Dowla, that is the son or grandson of Alivardi Khan. That is the successor of Alivardi Khan. He was so the absence of a strong army contributed much the victory for the foreigners. The army was not that strong, and the Nawab Bengal failed to check corruption among their officials only. The if you see the battle of Buxar and the Palasi, so we will see in that case the own men of the Nawab joined the hand with the British, as the Jagat Seth brothers played a very important role in that fight. Jagat Seth brothers uh, uh, made the officials of the Nawab into their side. Okay, so thus they left the thus they lose the fight, and in that case we will see that it was not a bloody war. They simply accepted the lose. They accepted the British supremacy at the time. So we will see all those things in the Battle of Buxar and the Palasi as a separate lecture for it. So the foreign officials took the advantage of the weakness of the undermined officials, rules and regulations, and the policies. So this was all about for the Hyderabad and Bengal. We will take a separate lecture for the Kerala, Awadh and all, and yes, the separate lecture for the Battle of Palasi and the Buxar. I hope you have liked this video. Please like and subscribe. This is a new channel. I need your support further. If you have any doubt, if you want any on-demand video lecture, if you want PPT as well, just ping me on my Twitter handle. Thank you.